We've been to Pirate City for the FCL, up to Bradenton, up to Greensboro, up to Altoona. Now we're going across to Indianapolis, bringing back Jack McMullen at Jack_McMullen11 at Just Baseball Media at Indianapolis Indians, one of the biggest hustlers in the game, and hustler in a good way, not in a Paul Newman trying to hustle you out of your money way.
Yeah.
Jack, how you doing, brother?
I'm good, man. We're in the thick of it. I think ready for this All-Star break to come around. But you know what? Like we're running through the tape here. We're gonna sleep for a long time over the All-Star break, and then we'll be good and set to go here. But second half starts today, man. We're talking on Tuesday the 25th, and Indians are in Rochester, so we're set to see James Wood, Dylan Cruz, and the fellas.
Yeah, I mean this season has kind of been flying by a little bit. For Pirates fans up here in Pittsburgh, it's been a little bit rough at times, has been really good at times. For the Indianapolis Indians on the season so far, 33-42, 16 games back in the West Division. Run through some offensive and pitching numbers here. The OPS overall, 757. That's 13th out of 20. 261 average. That is actually 5th out of 20. So hitting for average, not hitting for power, which will show up in the home runs. 66 home runs on the year. Good for 19th out of 20th. From the mound, the 5.31 ERA, 16th out of 20th. The 1.514 whip, that is 15th out of 20th. And the one thing I looked at here, Jack, that really kind of surprised me, it came up on Baseball Reference, the average age of the pitchers, 28.3. That is the second oldest, only to the Cubs at 28.6. Do any of those numbers surprise you at all?
No, not really. The home run totals make sense. You know, this team has really kind of lacked that masher. And, you know, before Jake Lamb opted out of his deal, we were kind of expecting him to be that guy that, you know, could have 10 homers in the first half because we've seen him hit 30 at the major league level. But, you know, that just wasn't really the case. Like he went over a month without a homer from April 30th until the beginning of June. So like there was really no true masher on that team. We had guys that hit the ball around the ballpark, which was great. And like we had a bunch of guys that were hitting for a high average. Like at the end of May, Lamb was at about 310. And of course, Nick, before he went up, was 370. Ji-Hwan Bae, before he went up, was about 370. So I think the offense was a lot better in the first month than what you saw the last month and a half, 2 months of the first half. Pitching, we had that Skeens guy, which was pretty awesome. And then after that, we got old. But, you know, Skeens was awesome. But, you know, outside of that, man, I mean, we're running out Domingo Germán and Dalton Jeffries and Michael Plassmeyer, who all are on the older side, the more veteran side. So none of those numbers really catch me off guard. The one that got me was, you know, we were hitting for a high average. We weren't stealing bases. So like, okay, you're getting on first a lot, but you're not getting on second via the double, and you're not getting on second via the stolen base. So I think that's probably why you saw, you know, the record where it was this year.
Yeah, and we're talking about like the reinforcements, and you know we've had Skeens come up, Gonzalez come up after coming back from injury, having Carmen Majinski come up, Kyle Nicholas. I mean, there's been a ton of promotions, and people are continuing to call for those reinforcements. And right now, I'm looking at it, and the name that gets mentioned more than any of them is probably Matt Gorski. I mean, Matt Gorski shot up through the system a few years ago, dealt with a quad injury, extremely athletic guy, does have 14 home runs across, I believe it's like 225 plate appearances at this point in time. Between AA and AAA last year, he had 20 home runs. A guy that steals a decent amount of bases. But I then do look at his an 896 OPS right now, 32.4% K rate, 7.1% base on ball rate. And people keep telling me to stop bringing that up. But we saw the same thing with Nick Gonzalez last year before he made the adjustments. He was striking out at a pretty big clip. when he came out, it was even worse. He made those offseason adjustments this year, and we haven't seen it as much. But in AAA, you see that jump, Jack, and it's like if you have a 30% strikeout rate, sometimes that can balloon to almost 40% at the majors. What
Yeah.
have you seen from Matt Gorski this year?
I've seen a guy that is pretty darn dynamic. And I think that that is the thing that could get lost in the K rate, because you see K rate and you think, oh, you're, automatically a slugger, and you're not that great of an athlete because you're willing to sell out for the big swing. That's not necessarily the case. There are a lot of guys in baseball, in AAA baseball and Major League Baseball, that are James Outman adjacent. Like James Outman is a guy that was playing a really good defensive center field for the Dodgers last year, and was flirting with an 800 OPS, and he was a very valuable player. He was a 3.5 win player for the Dodgers last year, but he really struggled. He was optioned, and like guys are going to go through these hot and these cold spells. I think that Gorski is a guy that is going to be streaky, surely. And I think that's where the K's come from. Like there are some games where, he'll punch 3 times and it's pretty frustrating, but there are also games where he's going to run into 2 and he's going to rip a double at 110 miles an hour and he's going to hit a homer 430 feet and he's going to play really solid defense, either in center or in a corner or at first base. And I just think that there's a lot of value there. And, like modern way of the game, I don't love it either. And I know that there's some pushback to this, but a guy that punches out 32% of the time, if that number holds at 30% of the time at the major league level, like there can still be value in a guy that punches out 30% of the time. And I think that he is that kind of guy that can provide value, even if he is punching at 30% of the time. Now, if 32 balloons to 40, then we've got an issue. And that's probably why you haven't seen him yet. But at the end of the day, I do think there's a ton of value in his profile.
Yeah, and he's a guy that does provide that flexibility that Ben Cherington and John Baker have liked. I mean, he is probably athletic enough to play all the outfield positions. Saw some first base at times throughout his minor league career. It's something that first base turns into a black hole at times for the Pirates. But you also have another guy that everybody is saying bring him up right now. And he has actually just been brought up to Indianapolis not too long ago, and that's Braxton Ashcraft. Yeah. The one thing I look at Ashcraft right now is I'm tracking, like I feel like I'm doing with Skeens and Jones, tracking their innings pitched. Because you're looking at a guy who is, I know it's his first full season back from, a Tommy John surgery. Right now, looking at around, I think it's about 64 innings. A lot of people say, there's that 25 to 30% increase. I think that's the low end for him, maybe. Yeah. But he's performed absolutely brilliant, even in his first, 2 starts in AAA. I hate to look at small sample sizes. Has an ERA below 1, a WHIP below 1, a guy that doesn't really walk. A guy that, John Moses told us a pretty cool story. I don't know if that was last week or the week before, about his dad basically sitting on a bucket. And if he threw it over, he had to, go get the baseball. So that's where the walks kind of decrease from him. But with Braxton Ashcraft, I'm wondering, everybody's talking, bring him up, put him in the bullpen just to stretch out his innings, make him a starter, but then maybe you'll have to shut him down. What are you thinking, Jack, with Braxton Ashcraft? And I'm not trying to put you completely on the spot with that. It's just something that needs to be discussed.
Yeah, I mean, he's already at a career high in innings at this point. He's thrown 64 innings. I think he's throwing tonight in Rochester. But this guy threw, 53 innings in 2019. In 21, he threw 38. And then in 23, he threw 52 and 2/3. So we're looking at a guy that, if you were going to follow the typical compounding of innings over the course of a single season over a guy's career, we'd be looking at a shutdown in the next 10, 15 innings, I think. And that's it for the year. You're not going to do that with this guy because he's proven to be an innings eater and he's already 24 years old. If he was 22, I would get it. But this guy is essentially making up for lost time right now because he has missed a lot of time with injury. And he's been so strong. Velo has held over the course of his starts. Now, he starts Tuesday. He would go again on typical AAA scheduling on Sunday. So that would be 4 days rest. Could I see them skipping that and throwing him again the following Tuesday so he gets elongated rest between starts? Sure. Like if you wanted to really prioritize him when it comes to the Indians rotation, and I see no reason why they don't prioritize him when it comes to the Indians rotation. If they wanted to really prioritize him and it's, hey, you throw on the days that you're scheduled to throw, he can throw every Tuesday and he gets 6 days rest in between. And, he's right. And he's going to keep building up his innings totals. And then maybe you think about the bullpen at the end of the year. I don't think it makes all the sense in the world to like shove him into the bullpen because so much of his value as a prospect comes from pitch economy through 6 innings or 7 innings. Like we saw him go 7 a couple times in Altoona. We've seen him go 6 and then 4 1/3, but the pitch count was running up. Like if you have a stressful 4 1/3, I understand, pluck him, but man, he's giving like Altoona and Indy 6 innings of 1-run ball, or at least he's a threat to do so. And wouldn't you rather see him develop as that, even if it doesn't mean that he's up this year? Like, all right, say they shut him down for a month and he comes back next year and he settles into another rhythm where he's giving you 6, can flirt with 7. The innings eater is so valued in the modern game right now. He looks the part of an innings eater. And if you've got innings eaters in Keller, Jones, Skeens, and Ashcraft, and all you have to do is piece together the final spot in that rotation, whether it's Priester, whether it's a free agent that you sign, whether it's Mike Burrows when he's back healthy. I think there are a lot of different ways you can do it, but frankly, I think moving him to the bullpen for the sake of limiting his innings and getting him up to the big leagues would kind of be doing him, the starting pitcher, a disservice.
And I can't disagree with you on that because it's something, I've even talked about or thought about was that, I mean, if you put him into that bullpen, then it's a different stress on the arm because then there's guys that are like, okay, I'm only going to be asked to go an inning or 2 innings. So they're going to pump up their velo. So how much are you really saving on the arm? As opposed to, okay, he's going out and like you're saying at times throwing 7 innings, but not having, not a lot of high stress innings. And it's more about like the ups and downs at that point in time. Cause I know that the Pirates count those as well as the number of times you come out for each inning. Cause that was like a hurdle or a box that's one of those things they like to say is a box that needed to be checked for Skeens, and different players like that. But it is kind of frustrating, as a Pirates fan to be like have all these young arms and for all 3 of them that you're having to, watch their innings. But that's kind of the way things go with young pitchers. These aren't like, a Mitch Keller who, went out and threw almost 200 innings last year. These are guys that, in Skeens' case, threw a lot of high stress innings at LSU. In Jared Jones's case, wasn't even a full-time pitcher until a few years ago because he was, a 2-way player in high school. And you talk about Ashcraft with the injuries, not only last year, I mean, that would have been 2 years ago, but throughout his career, he's, kind of had a bunch of injuries where he's kind of been limiting innings. But aside from those, kind of 2 guys that are being talked about a lot, who else would come to mind for you in that, kind of possible reinforcement? And I know it's not going to be the names that everybody was looking for because you were looking for Skeens. He's already here. You're looking for Gonzalez. He's already here. And even with Majinski and Nicholas, I mean, there's not a whole lot of guys, left there that, I mean, people are going to be looking towards for reinforcements.
I'm trying to think, and Gorski and Ashcraft are for sure the 2 names that jump to the forefront of my mind. I have no idea how the Herman thing is going to go, whether they use him at the major league level or not this year. I will say 2 guys in the bullpen that are fascinating to me. Isaac Mattson has really ticked up over the last couple of weeks, and Mattson is a guy that turned from 92 to 93 to 94, 95, and he's missing bats with his fastball. He's buzzing a fastball by them. Brady Feigl is an awesome story. 33-year-old, spent the last 2 years in indie ball, threw really well in the Dominican, and got another pro opportunity. And, he's been really, really sharp, out of the Indians bullpen. And he's a fastball curveball guy from the left side, and he'll run it up to 93, 94. The other guy is Connor Sadzik, who's gotten a decent bit of big league service. And Sadzik is a bigger right-handed arm that is ticking up to 97, 98. It's a very heavy sinking fastball. So I think that there are bullpen reinforcements here if they need bullpen reinforcements. But it's kind of crazy that, like, I look to the bullpen. I look at the lineup and it's like, I don't know who it is, but Ji-Hwan Bae just got optioned, which I'm sure that you saw. Like, Bae was reinstated from his rehab, and he was optioned. Alika Williams is here too. So you've got those guys that are kind of waiting, but I think Pirates fans know what they're getting with Ji-Hwan Bae and Alika Williams. I don't think there's much unknown left on this roster outside of the bullpen.
Yeah, and the one person I think of is Joey Bart as well. And it's all these guys that are kind of like the rehab assignment guys. And with the bullpen, I mean, that's something that, I mean, everybody kind of wants to go out. And I look to your back there because I see a White Sox player back there. And I think too, like, everybody wants them to build how the White Sox built a few years ago with like Kendall Graveman and Joe Kelly and all that kind of stuff. And you see how, and you see how that kind of worked out for them. I mean, it's not, the bullpen sometimes are built with these guys that, you just need them to be good for a couple months. I mean, look at Ryan Borucki, who may at some point in time, have a rehab assignment with the Indians, something like that. A guy that we picked up off of the waiver wire, and I say we as in the Pirates, and they picked them up, and he turns into a guy you were leaning on last year. So a lot of times bullpens, you have like your 2 to 3 main guys, and then you have, I hate to say like piecemeal it together, but in some ways, I mean, that's kind of how bullpens become the bullpens that they are.
Yeah, 100%. You've got guys that, might have failed elsewhere at the major league level, or, like we're good, but not good enough to stick around, and other big league bullpens if they got really good. And, like, there are a lot of really good relievers that were minor league free agents or, 1-year deals or DFA'd and claimed. Like, there are a lot of guys like that. I'll throw you a name that could fit in the bullpen. And I know he started a rehab and he's had his rehab transferred to Bradenton. Mike Burrows, like, I'm not sure what his second half of the season looks like, but he's already on a rehab. He's sitting about 95 right now. I really liked him as a starting pitcher before he went down with Tommy John, I think 2 starts into last year. But if he's back and you're trying to limit his innings, his fastball is electric and his slider is very, very good. And his changeup is very good, the left-handers. If he's got the feel for it and he looks major league ready in an inning or 2 spurts, like, man, get him up there and shove him in the bullpen. I think he makes more sense in the pen than a Braxton Ashcraft does, because that guy's like on the immediate rebuild from Tommy John. Ashcraft is a year removed from starting that rebuild.
Yeah, and that's like, it's a good way to look at it, because it's like 2 guys at like different places, and you have Burrows, already going to need, he's like, it was added to the 40 man, he's going, to be there at some point in time. And that one would actually make a little bit more sense. And I feel like, guys, we forget about Burrows, because once a guy, gets that, the Tommy John, then it's like, oh God.
You put them in the back of your mind for a year and a half, and then all of a sudden they're back and it's, hey, nice to see you again.
Yeah. And that's one thing that, you kind of forget about. And the other last question I would kind of want to ask you is, I mean, you've gotten the reinforcements in Indianapolis from a Braxton Ashcraft. Have you guys started to look down to Altoona again to kind of see if there's, anybody else that could be kind of called up from there to kind of help the Indians roster?
Yeah, I mean, Seth Beer was transferred from Altoona to kind of backfill the absence of Jake Lamb, who, had an opt-out in his contract. So he exercised that opt-out, and the Indians replaced him with Beer. And, makes perfect sense. Like, that's a guy that has some big league service and ample AAA run, who is there right now. In terms of pitching, like, I know what the sexy answers would be. Like, I know that, right, like Chandler and Harrington, and I know Solomito just hit the dev list, but like, guys like that, those are the answers that would be awesome. But there's nothing really that is here saying like, hey, those guys are concretely ready for a AAA call up. Like, they've all kind of gone through their bumps and bruises. For Harrington, it's literally been bumps and bruises. Like, he started the year on the shelf. He's working his way back. Let's see him be healthy for 2-3 months at the AA level, a place that he really hasn't like had the chance to get fully immersed in and succeed at for several months at a time. With Chandler, like, you see flashes for sure, but is he put together? And I know that he was just Eastern League Pitcher of the Week, but have you seen a full month where Chandler looks like he has conquered the AA level? Probably not yet. Like, I don't think there's anybody that has checked every box there is to check in Altoona that Indy is like, okay, give him to us now, please. I think that, we're just happy with who we get from there. And, frankly, like they're running with what they got. And I'm in year 3 in Indy. This, more than the first 2 years that I was here, feels like the big league understudy team. In 22 and 23, it really felt like we had a bunch of prospects that were in big league finishing school, and they were putting the finishing touches on their maturation before they got to the promised land in our game. Now it's like, okay, you've got a lot of guys that have been there that are waiting for their next shot and are there in case something strikes up there. Like, hey, somebody goes down on the infield, G1 Bay is ready to go, or Alika Williams is ready to go. Like, hey, somebody goes down in the rotation, Jaquin Priester was ready to go when Marco got hurt. Like that kind of thing. So I think now, like, we present a little bit more of a backup plan than we have in previous years. And, I do feel like most of the young, especially the pitching talent, most of the young pitching talent is still trying to like put their finishing touches on being really successful at the AA level.
Yeah, and that's like, I know that there are those sexy answers, and everybody wants to see them. And you bring up like a Bubba Chandler. Yeah, he did have that last great start, but he also had the funny bone issue that he said he got surgery on or something when he was younger, and a forearm tightness, and we all go into panic mode and different stuff like that. But Jack, it was great having you back on here again. For anybody that doesn't, please go follow Jack McMullen at Jack_McMullen11. Everything that him and Aram Layton are doing over at Just Baseball Media. Follow the Indianapolis Indians. Go buy some merch. I still have like the best hat I possibly believe in the Pirates minor league system. No offense to any of the other guys, but Jack, appreciate you, brother. Can't wait to have you back on again sometime.
Appreciate you, man.
If you ever see me out and about in Pittsburgh, you will always recognize me, and not just because of the white beard, but also because of the Y that is always on top of my head, the hat I always wear. The Yins brand, proud partners with Bucs in the Basement. 3 dynasties, 1 brand, Yins. Finally, 1 brand to rep all black and gold. Follow at Shop Yins for new merch drops and giveaways. Order online at www.shopyins, the emphasis on the 2 Z's, high quality comfort, lightweight materials, a new modern look for the black and gold, made for Yins by a Yinzer. All right, everybody, you know what's coming next. It is the top 5 Pirates prospect performers. Couple of these should be no surprise. I believe every single one of these is possibly a repeat. I talk about a lot of minor league players. Go back and listen to all the other ones just to see who the top 5 Pirates prospect performers were each and every week. Number 1, like I said, no surprise, Charles McAdoo. Everybody on the McAdoo hype train, promoted to AA Altoona. 3 for 10 so far as of the time of this recording. 2 home runs already with the curve. In a high A, he was slashing .336, .415, 561, a 975 OPS, 9 home runs, 5 doubles, 4 triples. This guy is lighting the Pirates minor league system on fire. Number 2, and also always no particular order, we got Nick Samillo. He is still with the Greensboro Grasshoppers, could be moving up to Altoona at some point in time. Had a 2 home run night this past Thursday, has 12 on the year. 150 plate appearances, slashing 296, 403, 608. He's up over 1,000 for his OPS, and also has a 26% K rate and a 14.7% base on ball rate. Listed as a catcher, has been playing a decent amount of first base. Mentioned him with Jack McMullen, our guest this week. Bubba Chandler had his best outing of the year. Did mention that he did go on the IL back on May 17th for a little bit with that forearm tightness caused by what he said was the elbow, the funny bone injury that he had suffered when he was younger. During his last start, 7 innings pitched, 10 Ks, 1 base on ball, 2 hits, 0 earned runs. Number 4, Axiel Plaz, the catcher for the Bradenton Marauders, one of the good catchers they have down there. He had a 3-hit day back on June 9th. He's over a year younger than the average age of the low A player. 6 home runs on the year. Guy has so much power for his age. I talked about him with Eric Garfield at Eric Birdland, a friend of the show. He has a 791 OPS on the season. And for his age, I mean, there's just so much potential there, so much power. Axiel Plaz is a guy that I pretty much liked since his days back in the DSL when he was only 16 years old. So I know for Pirates fans a little bit further away down in Bradenton, but is a guy that you have to keep your eye on. And for number 5, I'm going to cheat here a little bit. I was going back and forth, and it's with 2 guys that have been on this list before. Antoine Kelly, the 20-year-old pitcher from Aruba who is with the Marauders, and Johnny Severino, the 19-year-old who is down in the FCL. He's going to have to be up in Bradenton here at some point in time. During the month of June, has more walks than he does Ks. 7 walks, 6 strikeouts in 72 plate appearances in June. Slashing 281, and not slashing, but a batting average of 281. The OPS approaching 1,000. He's at a 937. He's in like the top 5 or 6 of every category in the FCL. 6 home runs on the year. Antoine Kelly, last outing, he went 5 2/3. 5 Ks, a walk, 4 hits, 0 earned runs, has had a couple good starts in a row. I know that Anthony Murph, it is at _Murphy 88 from Bucs on Deck Substack. Big Antoine Kelly guy. So go listen to what him and Nola Jeffy, their podcast, the Bucs on Deck podcast. But yeah, so I couldn't decide between 2 of those guys, so I'm going to go with both of them.
A pitcher of beer, a pitcher of beer. Let's order another pitcher of beer. That pitcher of beer should come over here. I love that pitcher of beer.
For these shows, we've been the whole way from the FCL up to Indianapolis. Well, I've been from West Virginia to Detroit. I went to a West Virginia Black Bears game in the MLB Draft Prospect League. I went out to Detroit Rock City and saw the Detroit Tigers play my wife's and her family's Chicago White Sox and drank some beer along the way. Down in West Virginia, it was Big Timber Brewing Company. The first beer that I had was their IPA, coming in at 6.5%. Give that one a 400, knock it down to 350 on the weighted based on batting average scale. And then their Country Roads Trust Lager. This one was a very good drink. It was a hot, hot day. It was a very easy drinking beer, coming in at 4%. Give that one a 450. Knock it down to 425. And at the Detroit Tigers game versus the Chicago White Sox, the first beer that I had was the Haymarket Beer Company's Relief Peacher. And that's a tough one to say, Relief Peacher. It was a peach IPA, coming in at 6.9%. Give that one a 450, knock it down to 400. And then I had the Detroit City IPA from Atwater Brewing, coming in at 6.5%. Give that one a 425, knock it down to 375. Then back at the hotel, chilling with the family, kids are in the pool. Everybody's just kind of hanging out. From New Holland Brewing Company, I had the Champion Circle Maize Ale, the color of the Michigan Wolverines. The Maize Ale, that one was a 4.4% ale. Give that one a 475, not only for taste, but also for, I'm not a big, Michigan fan, but it's always cool when you have those types of cans. Give that one a 475. Only going to knock it down to 450. But until next time, guys, let's go Indianapolis Indians. Let's go Curve. Let's go Hoppers. Let's go Marauders. Let's go FCL and DSL Pirates.